enough.
Yes.
Now, coming to you, Moses, as a person spiritually, like, for the record, where are you so that no Muslims can ever describe you as a Christian again? Well, how would you describe yourself?
Spiritual agnostic.
A spiritual agnostic.
There could be something out there. I'm just not aware of it at the moment in time.
Okay, fair enough.
That's how I define myself.
And what would you say led you to those kind of conclusions?
Towards agnosticism.
Yeah.
I would say that the more you learn about science, the more you have a more skeptical view of things.
Yeah.
So that's what I think led me to it. Just a more skeptical view towards everything, just to question everything.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen in the future? Maybe I'll move from agnosticism towards some sort of theology.
Well, surprisingly, I'm here to invite you to Christianity. I know that comes as a shock to you.
Halfway there with
But what I would say to you is that one of the reasons why I would reject agnosticism is that agnosticism is never a destination. It's never an end point. It's only a path along a journey. And I often think that people approach the question of what is truth, which is a question that Pilate asked of Jesus, what is truth? They approach it with a distortion of the scientific worldview. So the scientific worldview says you can't believe it unless there's some kind of evidence for it. But we know in our daily experience that there are many things that we know without any empirical proof whatsoever. I'll give you an example. You know that your mother loves you, you know that your father loves you. Now, if we were to do a rationalistic deconstruction, we would find that you have no way to prove that your mother loves you, but yet you know that it's true. And so what I'm saying to you is that our ability to grasp truth is not limited by scientific or rational inquiry. Those two things are necessary, they're part of the journey, but there's more to it than that. Because what is truth to you, Moses?
I'm going to divert that.
Okay, that's fine.
To the side for a second. I did call myself a spiritual agnostic.
Yeah.
So it means that I believe, right, that there's certain things, the spiritual side of humanity, that we are aware of, but we can't describe.
Yeah.
There could be energy, powers beyond our awareness, higher powers, but because we haven't seen it, it's hard for us to define it. So,
excuse me one second, Moses. Raoul, were you having any trouble just then? No, all right, I'm just checking because I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Carry on. You're talking about the spiritual truth.
Yeah, so you could be spiritual, well, you're talking about religion as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, what do you think about someone who is spiritual but not necessarily religious?
Well, I think that they haven't fallen into the trap of atheistic materialism, which is a nonsensical position, which often uses or misappropriates science to justify itself, and you've not made that mistake, so I applaud it. But in terms of knowledge of the truth, in terms of spiritual things, we have to fundamentally come to the question that you're not excluded from because you're a spiritual agnostic, but we have to come to ask the question, what is truth? Now, the philosophers answered that question by saying truth is that which accords most closely to reality. That is how the philosophers answer the question, what is truth? Christ answers the question, what is truth, by saying, I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one goes to the Father but through me. When we interact with the world around us, we do so by a narrative. So if I asked you what you did yesterday, you'd tell me a story. If I asked you what we're doing right now, you'd tell me a story. And if I asked you what you're going to do tomorrow, you'd tell me a story.
I slept yesterday, I'm sleeping today, I'm going to sleep tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, so that's a story. That is a story. We engage with the reality of the world around us through narrative. So it should not be surprising to us that when God wishes to communicate truths to us that are transcendental, that are universal, that he would do so through narratives, not through a series of instructions, not through a series of laws, but in a way that is communicative to all people.
You might say, you've got the truth.
Yes.
And then you might meet a Sikh, a Hindu, or a Muslim.
Absolutely.
They'll tell you that they've got the truth.
Well, yes, they would.
So
the question
who's
is,
got the truth?
Yes. So then we have to start looking at the criterion by which we measure truth. You know, so one of the reasons why I rejected Islam and became a Christian was because when I looked at the example of Jesus Christ and I compared him to the example of Muhammad, I found in Jesus someone that I could follow without my conscience being triggered in any negative way. When I looked at the life of Muhammad, even though I saw some good things about what he did, like he stopped the murdering of children, I also saw many things about his life that I think to myself, we could not apply this today as an example. So, for example, Muhammad permitted his followers to commit adultery with slaves that they'd captured who were married. This is breaking the Old Testament commandment about not committing adultery. This is unethical. The idea that you can have sex with slaves, which amounts to rape, but even if you justify it by saying that they consented, if those slaves were married, then that amounts to adultery. So either way, you have to reject this example. When I look at Christ, I find someone whose teaching and life is someone that I see the best of all that humanity can be in. I see the optimum. I see someone who lifts us above and beyond where we are. Well, hold that point, I'll come to you. But I just want to stick with what me and Moses are talking about. So what I'm saying is, when we come to measure truth and what is true, we have to look beyond the narrow constraints of reason and empiricism, and we have to look towards and include our understanding of conscience, our understanding of culture and history, our sentiments, our emotions, as well as reason and as well as empiricism.
How do you counter if a Muslim came to you and said, we believe in Jesus as well?
Yes, I would say they don't believe in the Jesus of history. Because the Jesus of history, according to the likes of Tacitus, Sertorius, I'll give you their names, one second.
You have to follow Christ.
Josephus, Sertorius, Tacitus, Julius Africanus, Pliny the Younger, Celsus. These are ancient historians who, in their accounts of their history, many of them were not Christian, I hasten to add, validate and confirm the narrative we find in the New Testament. So in answer to your question, the reason why I would say to the Muslim, you're not following Jesus, is because it's not the Jesus of history. The Jesus of history was crucified, and his followers believed fundamentally to the core of their being that he had risen from the dead. Expand your way of thinking.
Okay.
It's not just about reason, it's not just about empiricism, it's also about listening to your heart, to your conscience, considering your culture, considering the weight of history, like which is moving us in a better direction, which is moving us in a worse direction. You have to factor all of these things in, as well as reason and empiricism.
You sound like my dad, he says the same thing.
Your dad's a wise man.
All right.
Look after yourself.